Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Phase 3 of the MCU and its current phase is officially kicked off with Captain America Civil War, which acts as a sequel to Age of Ultron and a sequel to The Winter Soldier. How well did this movie do balancing out its characters and story? Well, let's take a look. Well, once again, the film is directed by the Russo brothers, and once again, the Russo brothers prove why they are my favorite directing team in the MCU stable of directors. Their direction in this movie is, I'd say, done better than it was in The Winter Soldier. And that's saying a lot because I love the look and feel and direction of The Winter Soldier. But I think Civil War was done was is a notch above it in terms of that, in terms of a technical standpoint. Uh, Once again, the Russo brothers do a fantastic job at mixing practical and CGI effects, and they look flawless this time around. Now, I said in Winter Soldier, it looked kind of shaky in certain areas, but in this movie, I can't really point out the areas where it looks shaky because they actually improved on the effects a hell of a lot, and that's a big improvement, and I like it. Uh, I love the way the Rousseau brothers were able to juggle so many characters all at once. Even if people did not get enough shine, they were at least given some memorable bits and moments to make them stand out. Which in a large ensemble cast, you have to do something to make every character at least stand out. And the Rousseau brothers managed to pull that off perfectly. And I'm just going to say it out now before I even get deeper into this. I think Civil War was the Rousseau brothers telling Marvel that they can juggle a large amount of characters and that Marvel has nothing to fear when it comes to the Infinity Wars. When it comes to the Infinity War movie, when it comes to the Infinity War movie, which is to be released next May. And I think the Russo brothers use Civil War to pretty much say, have no fear. We can juggle these characters better than Josh Whedon can. And I think that the Russo brothers did it. Uh, and I think the Russo brothers did outdo Whedon in terms of a juggling act with their characters, which is fantastic. uh, the action set pieces in this movie are really well done, especially that opening fight scene with Crossbones. Uh, Frank Miller returns. Uh, my a big One of my nitpicks is that I really wish that Crossbones did not was not killed off so early in the movie. Actually, it's not even a nitpick. It's actually a real main. It's actually a real gripe of mine. I think it kind of overall affects the story in a way, in terms of because the story. While I do like the story, in certain areas it does get very convoluted and convenient, and it kind of like it doesn't take you out of the movie, but it leaves you scratching your head where it's like, that could have been done much better than what really was. But let's get back on point. So they're in Lagos, and they're trying to get they're fighting Crossbones, who's going after some kind of a chemical weapon type thing. And of course, they get to the big brawl, and Scarlet, and just as Crossbones is about to like do like a sacrificial suicide bomb and probably take out the area that they're in. Scarlet Witch kind of puts a force field on him and throws him into a building. The building explodes, but unfortunately, there were people inside that building, and they are killed. And it is revealed that the people that are inside that building were representatives of the nation of Wakanda, which brings in T'Challa, and brings in T'Challa, who plays a big role in this movie because T'Challa. We get to like this big UN meeting. Oh, I know. I'm jumping ahead of myself. That explosion, coupled with the things that have happened in previous films, the incident with Sokovia, the big brawl in New York with the Chitauri, and the events of the Winter Soldier, lead the nation of the world to create something known as the Sokovia Accords, which pretty much gives governmental control over the Avengers. Now, Tony Stark is all for the Accords and thinks that the Avengers should be regulated in order to prevent, more unnecessary mishaps. because we find out in an earlier scene that a woman's child was in Sokovia and was killed. And we have Captain America, Steve Rogers, who is completely against the Accords and does not feel that the Avengers should be regulated and be used as tools for the government because, as we know, the government only uses tools if it benefits them in the end, and not really for a greater good. It's for their good. So Rogers is completely against the Accords, and that is where the two start to butt heads. And that's the strong, and that to me, that is the strongest part of the movie is the rivalry between Rogers and Stark. Their opposing ideals is what hold this movie together, in my opinion. And when you throw Bucky into there, it just makes that triad even more stronger because Bucky then becomes a central figure of the conflict as the film progresses on. But anyway, we but anyway, like now back to the T'Challa point that I was making. So we get to like this big UN meeting, and we see T'Challa and his father King Chaka, and an explosion. No, an explosion happens. And King T'Chaka of Wakanda is killed, and T'Challa is swearing vengeance. Of course, we find out that it was actually Barnes who did the suicide bombing, but it wasn't really Bucky Barnes. It was actually a character who was wearing a prosthetic mask of Bucky Barnes, and this character is Helmut Zemo, played by Daniel Brawl, who is a Sokovian whose family was killed during that whole battle, and of course he wants to get his big revenge on the Avengers for doing so, and that to me is where it gets a little bit muddled because this character does feel kind of shoehorned in, and I think it would have been better if Crossbones was the lead antagonist and he was the one that causes the Avengers to split. I think it would have been much better if it was Crossbones that was like devising different plans in order to cause the split. He would like Crossbones would cause destruction and mayhem, and when the Avengers were called to try and clean it up, they would always be too late, and Crossbones would always get one up on them or something like that. I think the stuff with Baron Zemo was kind of shaky at best. I mean, it's not horrible, and I understand his motivations, but it does feel kind of shoehorned in a lot when you look at it. When you watch this film multiple times, it doesn't really need to be there. But yeah, so that, of course, the events of that caused T'Challa to think that Barnes killed his father, in which he dons the persona of the Black Panther. I have to say, Chadwick Boseman, who plays T'Challa, did a really, really good job as the Black Panther. I mean, I liked his presence. I liked the look of the costume. I liked the way he moved in the costume. I liked the fight scenes he had with most of the Barnes. I thought they were really well choreographed and really well done. And I'm actually looking forward to the Black Panther movie to come out in February. I think it's gonna be a pretty cool movie, and it'll actually be something refreshing to see. We get to see Wakanda, and we get to see the I guess you could say the more jungle side of the MCU, which is going to be very interesting, and I am really am excited for that. Uh, another thing that I'm looking forward to, of course, this movie introduces us to the MCU Peter Parker version of to the MCU to the MCU's version of Peter Parker Spider-Man, played by Tom Holland. And even though he's not in this movie for a long time, Tom Holland is awesome. He is spot on. This is the first time we're actually seeing Spider-Man be portrayed the way he's supposed to be portrayed, which is as a 16-year-old teenage high school kid who's supposed to be in awe of everything that's going on around him and just happy to be there. And Tom Holland pulls that off perfectly. His one-liners are funny. His interaction with Stark is hilarious, and I cannot wait for Homecoming because I want to see more of that student-pupil thing going on between Stark and Parker, because they really have a nice foundation here, and I hope Homecoming further builds upon that foundation. So really hyped for Homecoming. I think that's gonna be the Spider-Man movie we've been waiting for. I really do have high hopes for that. Another thing that I like a lot. Again, like I said, the relationship between Cap and Iron Man, and between Cap and Iron Man is great. But I also like the relationship that goes on between Rogers and Bucky, and how Bucky's starting to regain his memories again, and he and Cap are starting to reignite their friendship that they've had for so many years. And I like the fact that Cap is pretty much willing to die to protect Bucky from Stark and from everyone, and I love it. I also forgot to mention uh, this movie finally, finally makes mention of the Incredible Hulk. Uh, 8 years later, and the Hulk is finally back in the public eye because General Ross is the one that pretty much is telling the Avengers about the Sokovia Accords. And of course, he's no longer a general. We learned he had a heart attack and had to retire. So now he's the Secretary of State. So he's now Secretary Ross. But Secretary Ross. Anyway, it doesn't matter because Thunderbolt Ross is back. I am excited. William Hurt was great in this movie. I love seeing him in this movie. I love the interactions he had with Stark. They're very, very funny. I like the scenes that he was in. He really has a lot of presence, and what this does now that you bring Ross back in, you have the potential to bring in the Red Hulk down the line as a potential threat to the Avengers, or if you ever, or God forbid, you do a solo Hulk movie. We got something now. The Russo brothers are thinking ahead. Okay, we bring in Ross back so we can have a villain after Thanos is said and done, or if we decide to do more stuff with the Hulk, with Ross being reestablished. You got that now. So that's a big plus in my opinion. So let's try and wrap this up. Now we get to the big clash of the Avengers, which takes place at the airport. And of course, we got Team Iron Man and Team Cap. Team Cap consists of Falcon, Scarlet Witch, Hawkeye, Ant-Man. Team Iron Man, we have I'm sorry, and of course, Team Cap also has Bucky, but it's expected. And of course, Team Iron Man has the Black Widow, and I like Scarlett Johansson's role in this movie because you can really, really see that she is torn between both Cap and Iron Man, and she pretty much joins Iron Man, pretty much as a almost like I guess you could say almost like as default, but at the same time she doesn't want to also. At the same time, you can tell that she is also trying to have Rogers join the two because she does not want to break up the event. She does not want the Avengers to be dissolved into like two separate opposing factions. You know what I mean? So I like her in this movie. Anyway, you have Widow, you have Vision, you have War Machine, Don Cheadle, and once again, Downey and Cheadle, their chemistry together as Stark and Rhodey continues to be the best part. Continues to be awesome and fun to watch. I love the chemistry together. It's great. If you're not going to give me another Iron Man movie, give me a War Machine movie because I would love to see Don Cheadle, do missions on his own as War Machine, and maybe have Stark be there as like his, as his partner, or like as like a special appearance at near the end of the movie or something. Anyway, or you don't have to at all. I just want to see a War Machine solo movie, and I want to see a solo Falcon movie because War Machine and Falcon, they are hilarious. They are funny, especially Falcon because Anthony Mackie is has so much charisma and he's just so entertaining to watch. And I love the bantering that Falcon and Bucky have. It's funny as hell. I would love to see like a buddy cop thing between those two. I think those two have like untapped chemistry. Have untapped chemistry with one another. I can't wait. And I would also maybe love to see Falcon and Spider Man also have like a little something going on because they also have like a little comedic bantering going on during this whole airport scene. And of course, Paul Rudd as Ant Man was hilarious, and he had cool one lines, and we actually get to see him transform into Giant Man, which was fun and great to watch. And like I said, Tom Holland as Spider-Man during his airport scene had pretty much was like the unsung star of the show. And I love the interactions he had with almost every character he would go up against. Hilarious. But near the end of the fight, we see a friendly fire happen, and Rhodey is accidentally struck down, and basically is paralyzed at the legs, and that angers Stark because his best friend was just almost killed, and his best friend was almost killed because Cap just won't stop and he won't hand over Bucky. So we go trace, we go, of course, now we get the big chase all the way down to Siberia, and in this scene it is revealed because there's a cold open scene where the Winter Soldier Bucky takes down pretty much shoots this car off the road, but in this scene it's revealed that the car he shoots off the road were actually Howard and Maria Stark, Tony's parents, and it is revealed that Bucky, under the influence of Hydra, was the one that killed his parents, and that further enrages Stark and further makes the conflict between the two that much more. And of course, this is where we finally get that big knockdown, drag out fight between Cap and Iron Man, and they kick the shit out of one another. It is a glorious thing to watch, and we have the Winter Soldier there, who is trying to help Cap and help him ward off Stark from trying to kill Cap, and we have Cap trying to ward off Stark from trying to kill Bucky. So it's done perfectly, and of course, with all that ensued, we also it's also revealed to the Black Panther, T'Challa, that it was not Bucky who killed his father, but it was indeed Zemo who killed his father. Of course, Black Panther finds that out, and he follows them to Siberia to get his vengeance on Zemo. But he also he also realizes that revenge is consuming him, and he does not want that revenge to consume him. So he does the right thing, and he's going to hand off Zemo to the authorities. But let's wrap this up now. So we get to the big ending, and the ending is pretty much Cap drops the shield and pretty much renounces himself as Captain America. There's Stark throws the line out like, "You don't deserve that shield. My father made that shield." And Cap just drops the shield and just says, "Fuck it, take it. I don't care." And he and Bucky just run off, just walk away. They leave, and Stark is just there, just there and just like, hope you're satisfied with yourself. Because Stark pretty much you and Cap pretty much just destroyed the Avengers from within. But we also, through a voiceover, we also find out that we learn that Rogers, still respects Stark, and if Stark still ever needs him, Cap will be there along with the rest of the Avengers who Stark had in prison. And we find out that Rogers is the one that breaks them out of prison, which is pretty much how the movie meets its definitive end and sets up for what's to come with Infinity Wars. All right, so all that's out of the way. Let's get down to the mid credits and the post credit scene. The mid credit scene, we pretty much see that Bucky, is pretty much asking to go back under hibernation because he still has that Hydra programming within him, and until they can find a way to get it away, erase it from his mind, he's asking to be put under, and he gets put under, and of course it's revealed that he's being given sanctuary in Wakanda and will be protected by T'Challa, which is to set up what's to come with the Black Panther movie and Infinity Wars, which is great. And then in the final credit scene, it's pretty much sets up Spider-Man Homecoming, and we see the big spider symbol get shoot up into the sky because Peter Parker has like this mechanical device, and we see the spider symbol, which is great. So that pretty much says that that pretty much opens the door for Homecoming for what's to come. So, well, that is my view on Captain America: Civil War. Uh, with all said and done, I'm going to give this movie a solid 9 out of 10. Not as good as The Winter Soldier in terms of the way its story is set up and in terms of its villain, but still an overall fun movie to watch. The acting is great. The action set pieces are fun to watch. The story between Stark and Rogers with Barnes is fantastic. The subplot with T'Challa and Barnes is great also, and the inclusion of Spider-Man and the performance of Tom Holland is on point and fantastic to watch. So 9 out of 10. If you haven't seen this one, definitely give it a watch. Does a really good job at being a sequel to the Avengers, and it does a real good job at being a sequel to the Winter Soldier. And the Russo brothers, like I said, do an amazing job balancing out all these characters, proving that they are going to ace it with Infinity War. So that is my take on Civil War. And I will be back next time as we will journey through some strange places. Until then, like, comment, subscribe, and take care, guys.